This remains a very difficult time, I know, for so many people in Oregon. There's a lot of uncertainty that adds to that. The uncertainties about the status of individual claims for benefits, about what programs might be created to provide additional assistance, who those will help, how much help it will provide, and for how long. I wish that we could give absolute certainty in answering all of those questions, and unfortunately, that just isn't the case. But I will continue to do what I have been, which is sharing the information that we have and giving as much information as we have available. And I hope that that continues to at least ease some of the stress that I know people are dealing with. One of the updates that we have to share this week regards the Federal Lost Wages Assistance Program, a grant program offered through FEMA. We will be applying for that grant, which will provide $300 in additional benefits for people. We anticipate it lasting for about 3 to 5 weeks worth of benefits. The exact time period that it will last is uncertain. It, in theory, can continue through the end of the year, but is much more likely to end as soon as the designated funding is exhausted. So we don't know exactly when that will be, and with some current natural disasters, fires, and hurricanes, that could deplete the funds even quicker. If we're approved for the grant, most people will not need to do anything else. They won't need to contact us or submit any additional claims in order to get their benefits. It will be retroactive to the week ending August 1st. That's when the benefits will start. For some people, we may need to get additional information. And if that's the case, we'll be sharing what that process is so that we can get that information as quickly as possible and get people their benefits as quickly as possible. Although we have not yet submitted the application, we are already working to implement the program so that we can get benefits distributed as soon as we can. We're likely to get funding for the first 3 weeks of benefits for the program. That would cover the time period of July 26th through August 15th with the initial approval. From then on, FEMA is providing funding to states 1 week at a time, and we'll keep doing that until the funding expires. We know that this program isn't enough, but we're working hard to make sure that it will get the help it does provide to people as quickly as possible. We continue to hope for a more robust, longer-term support for the many people that need additional assistance. In the meantime, we'll continue to provide updates regarding the application and the process for getting benefits issued. The Employment Department is preparing to participate in 2 days of hearings with the Senate next week at the Committee on Labor and Business. We know there are lots of questions about how the Employment Department's programs are working and where we can improve. We're happy to collaborate with the Senate in looking for solutions and ways to improve service to Oregonians. The department's ultimate goal remains to get Oregonians their unemployment benefits as quickly as possible and to be ready to help people get back to work as the economies reopen. This has been an incredible challenge throughout the course of this pandemic. Regarding Senate Bill 1701, which was passed during the second special session this year, that bill increased to $300 how much people can earn before it starts to impact their weekly benefits for most cases. Last week, I mentioned that it would take some time to implement the necessary coding changes in our computer system. That is still the case. We'll continue to keep the public informed as we have a better idea of when that work will be completed and when those retroactive changes can be made. But at this point, that work will be taking a back burner to us completing the Lost Wages Assistance implementation. When Senate Bill 1701 is fully implemented, people won't have to do anything else. They can just keep claiming and reporting their earnings as they have been, and we'll make the retroactive payments as soon as the computer systems are updated. That same special session also saw Senate Bill 1703 passed, and the Employment Department and the Department of Revenue continue to work together on implementing that bill so that more self-employed people can get their pandemic unemployment assistance benefits more quickly. We're continuing to work on our modernization project as well. We've built a talented team of leaders, project managers, and experts, and we'll continue to report out on progress with this important undertaking over the coming weeks and months. We certainly understand the urgency of modernizing our systems so that we can better support Oregonians. We're absolutely committed to doing this and to doing it well. We have another webinar that we'll be presenting. This one is focused on issues related to school, with people going back to school, either themselves or their children. It includes school employees who have questions about their benefits, parents who are unable to work because their children are doing remote learning, and we invite everyone to join that. We'll be posting the webinar afterwards on our YouTube channel and on social media, and that webinar is tomorrow afternoon at 1. Wanted to remind people also of some of the other communication channels available specifically to people that need to communicate with us in a language other than English. We continue to use our designated email box for that. It is OED_languageaccess@oregon.gov. And we continue to help people through our partners at Work Systems, Inc., using the dedicated statewide phone number 503-606-6969. The new website that we launched is now available in Spanish, Russian, and Vietnamese, and our pandemic unemployment assistance online filing forms are operational in Spanish. Both that website and the online form will have additional languages rolling out in the near future. In terms of getting people their benefits, we remain focused on doing everything that we can to get all of those benefits out as quickly as possible. We've reorganized our agency completely to focus on doing that, and we continue to constantly shift people from one area or one task to another, focusing on where they can help the most people most quickly. We continue to staff up so that we can better serve people seeking benefits, and the number of people who are waiting for their benefits is continuing to shrink. In terms of processing the initial claims, that was for a very long time a huge barrier to anybody getting their benefits. That barrier is now largely gone, and the initial processing of claims is going smoothly. We know that that wasn't the only barrier, though, and there remain other barriers now for us to address. The biggest ones remained adjudication and a variety of issues related to some pandemic unemployment assistance claims. The largest of those issues continues to be not having information with the application that shows that people are unemployed because of a COVID-19 impact reason, as federal law requires. So we're continuing to reach out to people where we don't have that information. And of course, when we launched our new online form, we're providing people real-time feedback if they don't indicate a COVID-19 impact reason before they submit their application. We're really focused on those biggest challenges now, adjudication and those issues with PUA claims. And to help face those, we have the National Guard continuing to help. We have 50 additional contracted people. I mentioned last week that we entered into a contract for those resources, and they're joining the ranks of the hundreds of new adjudicators that we have hired to do the work along with our more seasoned adjudicators. We're creating new processes to make things go more quickly. As with all new processes, it takes time for those to be refined, and it takes time for our new employees to gain proficiency. And unfortunately, it will take time for us to be fully caught up with the adjudication work. We know that this is an urgent issue, and we're treating it that way. That's one of the reasons why we instituted the Benefits While You Wait program, to help ease the impact of the required adjudication process. In terms of the volume of work, the amount of work that is coming in each week, although it is down drastically from where it was when this pandemic first began, it's still much higher than it was in early March, and is strongly in the recession area in terms of high workloads. Between March 15th and August 22nd, we received 552,600 claims just for regular unemployment insurance benefits. The same time period last year saw about 63,900 claims filed. And again, for the initial processing of those claims, we're doing that very quickly. The oldest of those claims that hasn't yet been processed is just from August 10th, and most of them are within just the last several business days. On the PUA program, we've paid out $127 million to over 46,000 people, and continue to dedicate our efforts on getting even more people more of those benefits. The WorkShare program continues to be utilized widely. We have over 1,500 employers using it, almost 64,000 workers that are receiving WorkShare benefits, and under that program alone, $54 million in benefits have been paid since March 15th. The overall impact of all the various programs we're administering has been huge, not just on individuals' lives and their families, but on communities as well. Between March 15th and I believe this is through August 22nd, we have paid out $4 billion in benefits in Oregon. So that certainly has been a huge factor in stopping a further decline of economic activity in the state. We know that getting through to us on the telephone continues to be too difficult. We have made some very real progress here. We're answering more than 5 times as many calls per day as we were even back in May. But even with that big increase, we know that it's still very difficult for people to get through. We're working really hard with all of our vendors to address the many issues to increase capacity at all parts of the telephone system. And that's also one of the reasons that we're glad that the Contact Us form we implemented is working well and is a good alternative to people having to call us. So we again encourage people to use that Contact Us form to avoid having to wait on the phone. I've been talking since the initial update that I gave about how we're hiring as quickly as we can. We continue to do that. We have 1,000% more people working on claims now than we did when the pandemic began. We're continuing to hire, and we're continuing to add more training to the employees that we've already hired so that they're able to handle a broader range of issues when they talk to people needing assistance. Just last week, we opened up yet another contact center to help house the growing ranks of our employees that are dedicated to serving Oregonians. The pandemic has caused a huge amount of strain on all parts of society. We certainly see that in the general economy, which has caused the big recession that we're in. We see it in the healthcare industry, in education, and in many support programs designed to help people, including unemployment insurance and all the new programs that we're administering. We're dedicated not just to addressing the current dire need, and we know that we haven't fully done that yet, but also to learning from this situation so that we can much better support the public through any future emergencies. This is going to be a slow recovery, and we will have high workloads for many months to come. We sometimes talk about whether something is a marathon or a sprint, and in this circumstance, it's both. We continue to work urgently as hard as we can, and we will have to do this for a very long period of time. We're committed to doing that. Early in this race, there were a number of big challenges that stopped almost everyone from initially getting their benefits, the processing of their claims. We've addressed those barriers, and that has been a huge benefit to many Oregonians. We know that there are still many real barriers there, though, and although each of those barriers impacts many fewer people than the early ones, and although we have greatly increased our capacity, our staffing, our experience, and our agility, and are dealing with these issues more quickly than ever before, I also know that that doesn't matter to each individual person that is still waiting to receive some benefits. We are incredibly focused on getting each person all of the benefits they're entitled to and doing it as quickly as possible and making the system one where that happens consistently throughout the future. I'm hoping that as we help people deal with the very desperate situations that they're in, that we're able to get the lost weight and that will be at least some additional support for people that are in very bad situations. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, David. I am going to start opening up the lines and unmuting folks. If you have background noise, please actually mute yourself, and I will be calling on reporters in the order that they RSVP'd. One moment. Okay, first up, we have Lindsay Nazrich with COIN. Is Lindsay on the line? Okay, we will come back and see if Lindsay's on in just a bit. We can go on next to Jake Thomas with the Salem Reporter. Jake Thomas? Okay, how about Bill Poehler with the Statesman Journal?
Yeah, hi David. Thanks for doing this again. Really appreciate it. So as far as the lost wages assistance program, I get this just for clarification. The initial stuff I had seen from the federal government was a $400, and you guys are going to do the $300. So is that $100 that the state had to contribute? Is that included in? Is that the $100 that's included? And that's why they're going to get the people on unemployment would get $300 more.
Correct. Although the initial announcements talked about a $400 additional payment, as guidance came out about how the program operated, the additional benefits, states have two options. They can either count the existing unemployment benefit payments that they're giving to people already as the state share of benefits, which means that people will only receive an additional $300. And that is what Oregon and almost every other state that has applied or is considering applying is doing. The other option is to add another $100, but that has to come from state funds. And the guidance has come out that states are not allowed to use their unemployment insurance trust fund or any other unemployment insurance monies to do that. So to add the $100 would require the legislature to identify some other revenue source and to authorize us to spend that money to provide the additional benefits.
Oh, that's interesting. So do we have any guess of when people might actually see that money? Because I know a lot of people are still, holding on and hoping for it to show up tomorrow or something. Is it a month away from people actually seeing it, or are we weeks away, or what do you think?
I really hesitate to give any estimate because it's so early. We've been coding, doing all of that work. It won't be tomorrow. I can say that safely. We hope that we're looking at a few weeks, but we're really not certain until we get a little farther into the work. And as we get a more solid estimate, we'll certainly share that. We don't want people to have kind of a false expectation of exactly when they'll receive it. But as soon as we have any amount of certainty, we certainly want people to know when they can expect to start getting that.
Great. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Bill. Next is Kate Davidson with OPB. Do we have Kate on the line? Okay, next we have Keaton Thomas with K2.
Hey, David. Good to talk to you again.
Hi.
So first question, this came out yesterday, is a group of makers who wrote a letter, I believe, to you and Governor Kate Brown, saying that they're frustrated with, like everyone else, of the people who haven't been paid yet and who are still waiting. One of the other things that they had said was, while we've talked about Oregon lawmakers who are in communication with OED, they say that they haven't had any communication despite reaching out to you. Is OED working with Washington lawmakers as they do with Oregon lawmakers?
So I did get that letter yesterday, and that was the first that I had learned that there was frustration about that. Earlier, I'll speak from what I know for certain. I had communicated with staff from some Washington legislators when they had individual constituent issues. The letter yesterday was the first that I had heard that they had concerns that things were not being addressed appropriately. We're incredibly focused on getting everyone their benefits, and we've shared that, I've shared repeatedly, we know that that's a challenge. We want to fix it. We're doing everything we can to fix it. And we know that the communication has also been difficult. One of the reasons why we've been working so hard to increase the phone capacity more, create the Contact Us form. Certainly when we become aware of these types of situations, we address them. I've been having regular contact, typically having weekly conversations with the Oregon congressional delegation. So this is certainly something that we're going to follow up on, but we want to do whatever we can to help every person who needs their benefits get those
And I also wanted
benefits.
to ask you, and I'm asking this today because I heard from another person today, and of basically now multiple people have come to me saying that they applied for unemployment benefits. They didn't really hear anything, and only later found out from an old neighbor or someone who's living in their old home that the checks were sent to a former address. Why would that be happening? And do you have any idea if this is a large scale problem or something that's a one or two off?
Almost nothing with the number of claims that we have is just one or two. When you have hundreds of thousands of people filing, even if it's small scale, it unfortunately means that it impacts more than just one or two people. This was an issue when the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program was initially created and we rolled that out within just a couple weeks of starting to work on it. We discovered that there was an issue where, despite the correct address being entered, it was sometimes looking back and retrieving an old address from a prior claim. So that's something that was identified and was fixed so that no further claims were impacted. Unfortunately, the issue that was there changed the address in the record, so we can't conclusively identify which of those claims were issued. That is not anything that is still happening, so it's not, nobody new is going to have that start to impact them. For some people that filed, especially early on regarding the pandemic unemployment assistance, there may still be a small number of people that will be impacted. And when we find out about those, we do everything we can to immediately correct the address and get payments reissued and expedite that if there's any way to do that.
Thanks, Keaton. Next is Mike Rogaway with the Oregonian.
Hey, David, how you doing?
Hi, Mike.
I wanted to start asking about the waiting week and where you are on the work for that and the estimate of how many hours that'll take.
Sure. So the estimate that we've shared in the past was that when we first did the look, it looked like about 4,000 hours, and we knew that that was a really rough estimate. Our IT professionals have, as they've had time, looked into that a little bit more. We know that they have been able to eliminate some of the worries that would have been complicating factors. So we do think that it will take significantly less than 4,000 hours. It's still going to be a significant effort. That is a matter of probably months, certainly not just days or weeks to fully implement. In terms of, I think, what most people are really interested in, which is kind of when we will have all that work done. I can't give a definite answer yet because we've eliminated some of the potential complications. We're more confident now than we were before that we will be able to get it done by the end of the year, but that's still not a certainty. Some of the complications are that we have to, for instance, divert attention from focusing on that to implement the Lost Wages Assistance Program. That will take some time to do. And then if there is another congressional extension or additional benefit program that's created, that would also require us to do some coding, and we'd have to look at whether that new program would provide more assistance than the waiting week payments or not.
Got it. Thank you very much. Very helpful. Do you have a ballpark estimate of how many people are waiting for payments? So that would be however many are in adjudication, plus however many PUA complications you have, plus anything else that's hanging out there. Are we talking, 40,000 people who haven't been paid yet? 70,000?
Unfortunately, I can't give you that number, and it's something that we're continuing to work on really hard. It's been a little while since we talked about it. Initially, for instance, with the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, we really didn't even know how many applications had been filed. It was such a new program, and the data systems were still being created, and reporting took a back burner to getting the system functioning enough to get benefits out. So we're still limited in how we can view the information, especially because there is so much crossover between the two programs. And like most of the kind of procedural challenges that I've talked about, the systems that we use are designed to flag things that are potential issues. So when you talk about people that are waiting for payment, we do know that a lot of people need to have their claims adjudicated. We will be able to get them payments. We've talked about all the efforts that are underway to speed that up. And we know that there are other issues there that we need to address to release payments. There's also a number of people that have applied that unfortunately aren't eligible for any of the benefit programs. And we don't know that for certain until we've done the thorough looking. So it's hard for us to say how many people are having benefits that they're entitled to held up. And really, I can't give anything more definite than it is in the tens of thousands. And we're doing what we can to try to get more definite numbers, but that's really all that we have right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Next, we have Joseph Gallivan with the Portland Tribune.
You may be referring to me, Peter Wong. Hello?
I've also got you here. I've also got Peter Wong from the Portland Tribune.
Okay.
Go ahead, Peter.
Oh, okay. David, looking ahead to next week's Senate hearings, has the Senate or the staff directed the agency to supply any specific information they're looking for? Or is it going to be just a general review of how your agency processes claims and so forth?
There's been some discussion about the types of information that they're interested in. And I think not surprisingly, it's the things that we all want to focus on so that we can look and see what can be improved and how to improve it. So it's going to likely be giving some context about how the system works. So just what the programs are, really what the state of the employment department was for administering those programs before the pandemic, and then looking at what happened as the pandemic hit in terms of what the programs are that were offered, how they were implemented, how many people were seeking benefits, how those processes went, certainly looking at some of the technology and communication tools and where those have worked well and where they haven't, what changes have been able to been made so far, and certainly looking for opportunities for further improvements that can help either in the short term or for just making a more robust long-term infrastructure to support Oregonians.
Okay, a quick follow-up. Maybe a little early to maybe pop this question, but do you anticipate for the agency any specific legislation to improve procedures or anything along those lines? I know there was at least those couple of bills during the special session, one which did not work out and the other obviously did, in addition to the suggestion by the labor commissioner. But did you see any requests coming for specific legislation?
Well, we certainly won't see that next week because it's a committee that's meeting not during a full or special session. So they wouldn't be able just procedurally to kind of have bills introduced and pursue enacting them. Whenever there is a session, whether it's a special session or the next regular session of legislature, I'm thinking back, and I actually just laid a session when there hasn't been at least one bill introduced that talked in some way about unemployment insurance. And certainly with the experience that we've all had dealing with this pandemic, I'd be surprised if there weren't some suggestions offered. I don't have any specifics that I'm aware of. I certainly the Senate Bill 1702 that didn't proceed has been a topic that's been introduced in many prior legislative sessions. And my assumption is that the legislators may be thinking about exactly those types of issues and want to understand more details about how the system works and what things really can be adjusted at the state level and where the federal requirements don't permit that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Next is Tom Cusack with Oregon Housing Blog. Is Tom on the line? Okay, we can come back. Jamie Goldberg with the Oregonian. Jamie Goldberg, are you here? Okay, next we have Dick Hughes with the Hughesisms.
Thank you very much for doing these. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. I want to ask a follow-up question regarding the new federal program whose name I already forgot. But that is, if you took people from the IT people from the modernization program, stop that work, could you implement that federal program faster? Could you implement Senate Bill 1701 faster? Could you implement other programs faster if you brought those IT professionals over doing that?
It's a great question. I'll answer the easy part first. So the name of the program is Lost Wages Assistance. In that, so the short answer is that right now it really wouldn't. We have the work that needs to be done on those efforts that you mentioned is really focused on the mainframe coding, and we have the people that have the expertise in our mainframe systems that know how to make those changes. They're there doing that work now. Earlier in the pandemic, we did take people temporarily away from the modernization program where they were able to help. And that frankly helped us a lot with getting the FPUC program, the extra $600 implemented in just a couple of weeks, and being able to get PUA starting to pay benefits in just a couple more weeks. They weren't doing the actual mainframe coding, they were doing some other work. And as we've built capacity, we got to the point where having them help us really wasn't making progress on modernization. So certainly if we see opportunities to borrow expertise from the modernization team, we're doing that. But at this point, for the most part, especially in terms of implementing new programs, we have the people in the agency or anywhere that know the programming language and know our systems already doing that work.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I had explanation. I had not understood that. Then a follow-up question on the Lost Wages Assistance Program. What was your discussion with the governor's office about that? And I'm just curious about the sort of the political decision making behind this, as well as the economic decision.
Sure, and I think all of the discussions really were focused on what gets the most help to the most people, and that's certainly what our agency is focused on, and what the governor's office is also focused on. We had discussions about how much support this program will offer, and places where it frankly falls far short of what is needed, and that it will take a significant effort on our part to implement it. We talked about some of the impacts, for instance, delaying our ability to work more on the waiting week, and talking about those trade-offs. But in the end, we know that there are Oregonians that are sorely in need of additional assistance. And even though this isn't enough, it's some assistance that we believe we can get out to people. So we decided that we just needed to do that. We certainly looked at the costing of it. And as we got more guidance and it became more clear that the $100 to provide additional benefits, for instance, couldn't come out of the trust fund, talked about that and the fact that our agency just doesn't have the authority to spend that kind of money from revenue sources that we don't have.
Thank you.